You are Locked On Trojans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wow, that was ugly and brutal. Not good. Wow. I can't believe the Trojans lost that game either. Sean the Bomb, or whatever you go by. Yeah, Sean the Bomb. Welcome to the Locked On USC Trojans Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. I am Pete Fox. You can also listen wherever you find your postcasts on the Locked On Trojans Postcast feed. Maybe it's the Locked On USC Postcast feed or podcast feed. That's where you find the daily Locked On Trojans Postcast or podcast, rather. This one came right down to the very end, and we'll get into the details of how the Trojans just absolutely snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in this one. Just like last week, the difference being Penn State was number 4. Not that Maryland was bad, but not Penn State. Maryland is was in the middle of a 3-game losing streak, and the Trojans had this one well within their grasp a couple of different times. I don't know if you necessarily put it completely on play calling, time management of the clock late in the game. There's a lot of different things that went very, very wrong for the Trojans in this one as they lose it 29-28. Today's episode of the Locked On Trojans Postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I guess we have to start at the end where it all went south for the Trojans, the blocked field goal. That was just a fantastic play by the Terrapins to get through there and block the field goal and then a lateral. It was really heads up football. You know, I don't look at the Trojans and go, yeah, they muffed that or laid an egg there or made a mistake. It was just they were outplayed by the Terrapins there. Guy got through, blocked the kick, and then there was a lateral, and then again a little bad luck. The ball was punched out, and it turned into an extra 27 yards for the Terrapins, putting them in Trojans territory there in the final 2 minutes of the game. They were able to drive down rather easily. And this is where, for me, it all goes south and I get really hot and heated and ticked off and frustrated with how did that happen? How in the hell was that guy's name? Ty Felton open. Ty Felton was the guy catching balls wide open all day. I'm surprised he was tied for second on the list for the Maryland receiving corps as far as the numbers. 9 catches, 84 yards for Felton. So maybe that answers the question a little bit because you had to cover Caden Prather as well, who caught 9 balls for 111 yards. But to me, it seemed like the more impactful catches were from Ty Felton. And here he is on this final drive, just wide open down the field. And the Trojans defender there was late getting to him to cover him. Ends up in a PI, big gain, and then an easy walk-in for Edwards. The touchdown was simple there. And then they had gone for 2, and that turned into, all they needed was the extra point to win the game. The Trojans couldn't make a big play when they needed to. The blocked field goal was not really the problem. That was another part of it. But the way that Ty Felton beat John Humphrey, and Humphrey was like trying to cover it up at the end of the game, was terrible. And then, I know that you guys probably will want to get into this because you don't believe that Lincoln Riley is good with clock management. And I'm starting to agree with you. The final drive, the Trojans had the ball, 58 seconds to get into field goal territory. And I could go either way on that final call. 4th and 1, try to kick a 57-yarder. No, probably not. That is something I would agree with the call there from Lincoln Riley and his staff. But as far as the play that they called for Woody Marks over the middle, it seemed like, okay, that's not, there's Woody Marks, but the DBs or the linebackers were crashing quick. So throwing into that kind of coverage and that kind of heat, 4th and 1 with the game on the line, to me doesn't make a ton of sense. Something quick, get the ball to somebody on the outside, a receiver. I know Woody Marks is a fine receiver, has decent hands, but had dropped the ball not too long ago in the 4th quarter. Find Mekhi Lemon or Jacoby Lane, somebody just on the outside. Branch, Zachariah Branch, good hands, speed, just, a little dump off. You got to get a yard. You got a timeout. And then, you've got the opportunity at maybe one more play. I don't know. With 12 seconds on the clock, not really. It's a tough spot. They needed bigger chunks. You couldn't just 3 and 4, 6 yards down the field when you've got 58 seconds. They had 2 timeouts, but you just needed bigger chunks. So there was a fair amount of stuff there on that last drive. Here's how it broke down. Pass complete to Jacoby Lane. 2 passes to Hudson that were good for a first down. Then they had a batted pass. That was the one really that hurt them. Then on 2nd down with 22 seconds, incomplete to Hudson, which was a bad pass because Miller Moss had pressure in his face and he threw a wounded duck at Kyron Hudson. And then 18 seconds, 3rd down, timeout called by Maryland, a completion to Branch short of the first down. Now that's one where you go, don't you have to get to the first down marker? In that particular situation, you got to get to the first down marker before you turn around for the pass. I put that on Zachariah Branch. I mean, he made a nice catch, but you got to be at the first down. You can't afford to not get the first down in that particular situation. Big mistake there that partially cost them the game. Then on 4th and 2, 12 seconds to go, a little dump over the middle to Marks was broken up. They said dropped in the broadcast. I don't know that it was dropped. I think it was just a good play from the guy over the back to knock it out of his hands. So there was just a lot that went wrong for the Trojans down the stretch of this game. Their coverage on that final 2-minute drill for the Maryland Terrapins, or drive rather, was just too soft. Too many open guys. But in the end, 4th and 7, Ramsey got the sack. So we thought, okay, this is all good. It's going well. They made a big play when they needed to, right? At that point, they had made a big play. Sacking him to get the ball back on 4th down, up 6. And how about the people that picked Maryland? No, that wouldn't work. That's not right. Never mind. If you picked Maryland, you got 7. So you won this one rather easily. I was thinking it was the other way around, like it was right on the line. But it wasn't an easy win if you bet on Maryland because you got 7 in your pocket there. But if you had Maryland just to win the game outright, you were brave and a little sweaty at that point in time. But yeah, it's a great win for them to snap a 3-game losing streak. And the Trojans are just in a bad way right now. Really, really bad. Ran the ball okay. Woody Marks, 17 carries, 82 yards for a touchdown. But beyond that, nothing. Quentin Joyner couldn't get anything going today. And I don't know what that was about. Maybe he's not 100%. I think he missed last week or 2 weeks ago. So he was nothing today. They had no ability to get anybody else moving on the ground other than Woody Marks. So the Trojans now 3-4, 1-4 in the conference, just like Maryland, 1 win in the conference. And I say, look, the Trojans have a lot of improving to do. They have a lot of things to get better at. I still believe Miller Moss is good. I'm a little less enamored of him after today's performance. We'll get to the numbers after the break. I thought it was okay. His first half, it was pretty even once again, which is a thing that Miller Moss has done. He's played pretty two even halves. But something that happened in the first half for the Trojans, sadly, they couldn't keep going in the second half. We'll talk about that after the break. It's the Locked On USC Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Trojans podcast feed. That's where you find the Locked On Trojans daily podcast with Mark. Make sure you check that out. Today's episode of the Locked On Trojans postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You can get some live in-game action there, which is always fun if you're feeling good about the way the momentum is shifting or rolling. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bets. Download the app or visit FanDuel.com. All right, Trojans lose again. That's 3 in a row for them now after dropping this one to Maryland in College Park. A lot of people want to say it's because of the travel. Oh, so much travel for USC. They went out to Michigan and then back home and then out to Minnesota and then back home and then out to College Park. So, thousands of miles each week. And I don't know if it's a fair point or not. I look at this and I say, these guys aren't kids. They're men. Pros do it. They're getting paid. It's not like it's really all that different from the NFL, and many of them will be playing in the NFL. So you can't put it on the fact that they've had to travel a lot. You can't put it on the fact that this conference is just different. That's a big factor for me in what I've seen. Look, Maryland came in with a chip on their shoulder at home, needing to prove something against a little bit better team. I don't know that they're much better. They also struggling right now. So, It's a different style of football. Now you look at Maryland, you go, yeah, they're not the Penn State, Michigan, rough in the trenches style, but it is a little bit different. And the Trojans are still trying to find their way in this conference, the Big Ten, and it's not looking good. They're 3-4 now and 1-4 in the conference. The number that was impressive to me coming into halftime and into the third quarter was the Trojans held the Terrapins to a grand total of 0 yards on the ground. Now, obviously, in the second half, they couldn't do that. They finished with 56. Nolan Ray had a pretty nice second half, 6 carries for 54 yards. And Roman Hemby, 4 carries, 12 yards, and the touchdown, which was a nice run. He was physical as hell there, carrying a defender into the end zone for a touchdown there, which was big for them. So you look up and down and you say, well, the Trojans looked good at times. And I think that's the facade or the mirage of this team. We look at them and they go have so much freaking talent, and they just can't seem to continually hold on to leads. They just give it up. Their second halves are just awful. They lost this one 22-7. So at the break, they were up 21-7. And nothing really going on in the second half for them. They did score that touchdown in the fourth quarter. That was a Miller Moss pass to Deuce Robinson for 26 yards. That made it 28-14. That was early, though, in the fourth quarter, the 13:31 mark. Then Maryland answered right back. Hemby with a 10-yard run for a touchdown to make it 28-22 after the 2-point conversion, which was also way too easy. I mean, that little slant pattern, just guy was wide open. There was nobody on him. I think that's the biggest thing that the Trojans need help with right now is their DBs and corners are just playing too loose. They're making stuff just too easy. Look, Jalen Smith and Kamari Ramsey had good games. Easton Mascarenas-Arnold, also a good game. 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack. Ramsey had the sack. So they had a grand total of 1 sack over the last 2 games. So they doubled, 1 sack last week and then 1 sack 2 weeks ago. So they had 2 today. So that's good, but it's not good enough. They have to get after the quarterback more, and they have to limit the receiving yards on the opposition. 373 yards. They had Caden Prather with 111, Octavian Smith with 84, Ty Felton with 84, 9 catches. All 3 of those guys, 9, 8, and 9. Then Hemby had 6 out of the backfield for 52 yards. Dylan Wade, 4 for 26. Nolan Ray, 1 for 10. Preston Howard had 2 catches for 6 yards. That's just too many yards to give up passing the ball. Billy Edwards wasn't great, just like Miller Moss. 39 of 50 for 373, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Miller Moss, 35 of 50, average of 6.7 for 336 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. So what do we think the Trojans need to do to get back on track, snap this 3-game losing streak and get one in the winning column? I know they're playing Rutgers, who lost to UCLA next week. That's at home. Should be a good situation for them to win a game. It's a night game at the Coliseum. Rutgers comes in with a winning record. They're also 1-3 in the conference now. So, look, it's a game where the Trojans will be favored, but they need to be able to defend the outside better, establish the run a little bit more. And I still feel like, as much as I love this receiving core, it's too vast, right? Am I crazy to think that there are just too many damn receivers on this team that Miller Moss is trying to decide between? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you want to throw Lake McCree in there, that's 6 guys that all had multiple catches today. I shouldn't say that. Woody Marks had 4. He's not a receiver, though. Kyle Ford had 2. Beyond that, Lake McCree 4, Kyron Hudson 4, Zachariah Branch 4, Jacoby Lane 4, Deuce Robinson 3, and Mekhi Lemon was the man today. He's kind of moved into the number 1 spot, if you ask me. 8 catches for 89 yards, but Deuce Robinson's a big dude. You should keep him in there. It's tough to pick 3. It really is, when you got this much talent. If it's me, look, you can't go away from Mekhi Lemon. 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't have said that, but the way he's played of late, that dude is a baller. Got to keep him in there. 8 catches today for 89 yards. Deuce Robinson's a big receiver with good hands. Jacoby Lane is a big receiver, and so is Kyron Hudson. Like that touchdown, here we are complaining for the most part, half of the show at this point, and we even talked about the touchdowns that the Trojans had. They were fantastic. It just didn't really amount to anything. Kyron Hudson, 22-yard pass, which was a little short. Today, I saw too many passes from Miller Moss that were just short. There were a couple that were high as well, but the touchdown pass to Kyron Hudson was short. He made an adjustment to turn around and come back a little bit for the ball, which was just a great adjustment and a fantastic play for the Trojans' first touchdown to make it 7-0. Then a great pass on third to thread the needle to Jay Fair, which was then followed by that miraculous one-handed grab from Jacoby Lane. A touchdown made it 14-7. That was good from 15 yards. So Miller Moss is clearly capable of throwing touchdowns, and these guys are clearly capable of catching them. They missed a field goal. Lemon at a 24-yard completion, and then the Marks touchdown run from 5 yards out made it 21-7 at the break. So their offense is good. It just needs to be better, because the defense can't stop anybody when it matters. They have the ability to stop people, right? Like I said, they made that sack. Jamari Ramsey made a huge sack there late in the game, under 2 minutes. Kamari Ramsey, not Jamari. I was thinking of Jalen Smith, who also had a good game. 11 total tackles, 9 solo. Kamari Ramsey, 7 total, with 6 solo tackles. 4th and 7, Ramsey came on a blitz from the corner around the end there and got to Edwards and sacked him in a big moment. But it just, it wasn't enough. It's like, I don't know what else they have to do. They have to be more physical at a more physical time. They have to be their best when their best is required. To steal a line from UCLA's John Wooden, it's a fantastic line. I mean, as he's known for many of them, that is one of his best ones. So I feel like the Trojans just aren't intense enough at the end of the game when they need to be, when they really need to dial it up and say, now's the time that we need to bow our neck. They can't do it. I don't know why. I mean, that a lot of times comes back to coaching, but it doesn't feel like Danton Lynn is a hell of a coach. It doesn't feel like it's on the coaching. I can't explain it. That's why I'm kind of frustrated right now. This is another game the Trojans should have won last week, and they should have won this week. Completely different season. They'd be 3-2 in the conference, 5-2 overall. It would be just like they let two, and really they should have beat Minnesota too. I didn't watch that game because I was doing Dodgers that day, so I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it other than going back to read the story and watch look at the stats. But that was a game they should have won. Way better than that team, and dominated until the end of the game. Again, another letdown in the latter parts of the game, third and fourth quarter, primarily the fourth quarter in that one. Today, again, primarily in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, crunch time, they couldn't get it done. It's just frustrating. It really is. If I'm a Trojan right now, I'm like, damn, guys, we just have to be more mentally focused. It's not like we're bad, but we're playing bad. And some of that stuff is kind of rudimentary, basic stuff. Make your blocks. Keep that guy out of there from blocking the punt or blocking the kick, rather. So it's just a situation where they've got a lot of little things to tighten up. And, this season is obviously in the can at this point. They just have to try to save face and work their record back over 500. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I couldn't remember the name of the bowl, but I was thinking of the Sun Bowl, which is in El Paso, usually on Christmas Day. If they could get to a Sun Bowl, I think that might be a successful season for them. They lose today in Maryland, College Park, Maryland, to the Terrapins, 29-28, the final there. I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On USC Trojans Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. Today's episode of the Locked On USC Trojans Postcast is brought to you by Hims. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to get to a doctor's office to get started for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside of your door. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing that you can get hard and stay hard whenever you are in the mood. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewables, hard mints, and Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. No insurance is needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. Start your free online trial today at hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved by, verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. I'm getting better at the disclaimer. Like I can almost shoot it out, like they do in TV commercials where it's like, but it's harder when it's done live. You can't always get to that. I'm doing my best though. Trojans fall today. Their third loss in a row. They lose to the Terrapins 29-28. Manuel says USC equals us should compete. Lost me there, dude. Us should compete. Okay. We should compete. And yeah, got it. Right. Should have proofread that one. The fact is that, yeah, they need to compete more down the stretch. They've got a ton of talent like USC always does. And I definitely feel like their defense is better, but I still don't think it's quite there yet. I mean, there's nobody up front really getting after the quarterback. Coming into the game, we knew the offensive line was a little thin, a little banged up there, but defensive line still feeling pretty healthy. But there's not a lot of threat there to get after the quarterback. You know, if the opposition has a decent running game, the Trojans really have a tough time slowing them down. You know, when you run for 0 yards in the first half, that basically tells me that they're going to throw the ball almost every time. And I don't really feel like Maryland was coming into this game going, we're going to deke with running the ball in the first half and then throw it in the second half more, you know, and run it a little bit then. No, they just couldn't. The Trojans did a good job of stopping the run in the first half. So they need to figure out a way to say, all right, the stuff we're doing in the first half, we need to do in the second half. Especially on defense, and they need to get after the quarterback a little bit more pressure there, slow down the run a little bit more throughout the game, not just in the first half. As far as the offensive side of things, you know, I am souring a little bit on Miller Moss. I think he has flashes of brilliance where you're like, damn, that kid can move. He's got a good arm. He finds guys, fitting it in tight windows. You know, he hasn't had to scramble around as much the last couple of weeks. The offensive line has done a pretty good job. I thought today he had to step up in the pocket a handful of times, but he didn't have to run for his life the way he was prior to Minnesota, you know, like against Michigan and so forth. He was just scrambling for his life. Even against LSU in the win to start the season, he was just all over the place and did a nice job of finding receivers with a ton of pressure. I didn't feel like he had a lot of that today at plenty of times where the line did a nice job and he could sit in the pocket and find his receiver. But there were a handful. Again, he was 34 of 50, 16 incomplete passes that were wounded ducks, that were high, that were wide, that were short. He was just kind of all over the place. I thought his big miss a lot was short. The announcers thought it was high frequently. I didn't see that as much, but definitely a couple of times where it was high or a little bit out, you know, outside of the receiver's reach. I don't know that the RPO is great for them because he's not a great runner. -3 today. So I don't know why they continue to try to jam that down our throat. This run pass option thing is for guys that are really good runners. Like Miller Moss is good at scrambling for his life. He's not a good running quarterback. So why are we running the run pass option? You know, play action seemed to be working pretty well for them today, but not great. I mean, it freed him up a lot, right? At times, but early in the game, the only thing that was working for them passing the ball was the dink and dunks, the slants, the shorts, the outs, those little 5-6 yard passes, and then get the ball to the receiver and let him do something, run after catch. That was the only thing working in the first quarter. In the second quarter, they started to stretch it out. Again, Kyron Hudson's touchdown was 22 yards. The pass to Jacoby Lane, 15 yards. They were stretching the field a little bit more. Then by the fourth quarter, the touchdown pass to Deuce Robinson, 26 yards. So they were stretching the field a little bit more. But then in the fourth quarter, when they needed to have short completions and decent gains, they couldn't do it. So that to me comes back to play calling. So maybe we can hang a lot of this on a little bit of this on Lincoln Riley's play calling here, because it just wasn't fantastic when it needed to be. It was good early. They stretched the field a little bit in the second and third quarters, and even in the fourth with the touchdown pass to Deuce Robinson. But in the crunch time, the final 2 minutes of the game, they couldn't get it done. They couldn't execute simple plays. They needed a first down there. Then they at least probably have one more play, or maybe you got to kick the field goal at that point. I don't know. 12 seconds. If that play does not go out of bounds, then you're going to have to call a timeout and then try to kick a very long field goal. So to me, like I said, it comes back to Zachariah Branch not making that reception good for a first down. And that's route running. That is just a mental error. You got to run to the first down marker and catch the ball at the first down marker, not 1 yard shy of the first down marker. So I feel like there's a lot of little things going on with this team right now that need to be cleaned up. And it's not just the players. Offense can be better. Defense can be better. Coaching can be better. Time management can be better. The corners covering the receivers. There's just a lot of things that you come into this game going, if we can do 2 of the 4 right, like if we could cover the receivers tighter and we can, I don't know, what's the other one that's probably very important? Hold a lead. I don't know. There's just so many little things that the Trojans are letting slip through their fingers right at this point. It has to be frustrating for them, because I know it is frustrating for us. Final thoughts here from Daniel Hawkins. He's coming right out with the fire Lincoln Riley, followed by and the staff. Team collapse in the second half. Special teams again is killing us. All fair points. All fair points. I don't know about firing Lincoln Riley. Getting Lincoln Riley was kind of a coup. I don't believe that Lincoln Riley is a bad coach. I believe he's going through a bad stretch right now, and they have to get cleaned up. They're making too many mistakes at the crucial point of the game, and that's exactly what happened again today. Yeah, it's a fair point, Daniel. What has he done? Well, the show's over, so I can't get into that. This year, not a whole lot, right? He hasn't done a whole lot, but that doesn't mean you fire the guy, right? Because who do you hire then? If not him, then who? Tell me that next week. Come back and join me then, Daniel. If you want to fire Lincoln Riley, then tell me who you're going to hire and we'll discuss it. I don't believe the offense is basic, but it's not super dynamic. It's really, yeah, you're right. That's a fair point too. It is not what we're used to seeing from Lincoln Riley. And maybe that's on Miller Moss. Maybe Miller Moss isn't capable of doing too much more. So Lincoln Riley has to dumb it down a little bit. And not that Miller Moss is dumb. They pointed out today that he's already done with college and he's a junior. So he's finished with college. He's a very smart guy. But as far as the football acumen, or maybe just the ability, they have to dumb it down just a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Miller Moss has all of the skills, but he just doesn't have them on a regular basis. His consistency is off. He'll make some fantastic, great plays, and then he'll throw a wounded, wobbly duck that is out of the receiver's grasp. So it's a frustrating time, and they got a long way to go to be a good team, because they're not a good team right now. Now 3-4, 1-4 in the conference after the 29-28 loss to the Terrapins in Maryland. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for the comments. It's the Locked On USC Trojans postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. You can also listen wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On USC Trojans podcast feed. We'll be back next week it'll be late Saturday night as the Trojans start at 8:00 at the Coliseum against the Rutgers Red Wave, or whatever they're called now. We will talk to you then if you're just around for Trojans football. But tomorrow, don't forget, we have Locked On Dodgers postcast, where the Dodgers can wrap up the series against the Mets and head off to the World Series. That'll start at 5. So I'll be doing Locked On Dodgers postcast right after that. And then on Monday, it will be either Locked On Dodgers Game 7 or Locked On Chargers postcast. One of those two will happen on Monday. I don't think if there is a Dodgers game that I'll be able to do both, because they'll both be starting right around the same time at 5:00. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Dodgers come out and dominate and win a laugher tomorrow at the Ravine. Have a good night. We'll talk to you then. Take care.